What do you do when overnight a global pandemic plunges the organization you lead into uncertainty? Welcome to The Pivot. Hi, everybody. Jen DeVore here, Civic Impact Manager at the Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. I'm back with another episode of The Pivot, our web series highlighting regional pivots from leaders across the Philadelphia area in wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Very excited about our next guests. We have Matt Bergheiser, President of University City District, and his colleague, Sarah Steltz, Executive Director of the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. So Matt and Sarah, if you want to turn your cameras on and join us.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. That was great in sync coordination there. That was great. Thank you guys so much. Before we get into the incredible pivot that you guys are doing, first, let me ask you both, how are you doing in all of this, in these strange times?
Matt?
How are you doing, Sarah?
Well, Matt,
Sarah's got her door barred from a child running in. So that's about how we're all doing.
It took me all morning to construct it. Yeah. My canned answer is as well as everybody else, basically during this time who has small children at home.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. And Matt, how are you doing today?
Same. I mean, we're all trying to get through day by day, both on the home front and professionally. So, but the amazing thing is that the entire world's all in this together. So we take solace in that every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's just get right into it. To start, if you could just, for our viewers at home, I mean, that may not be as familiar with University City District and the great work that you guys are doing, maybe just give an overview of your organization and your goals and mission.
Sure. Thank you, Jen. So we are, essentially a partnership of anchor institutions, of business leaders, of community members that invests in the vitality of a 2.5 square mile area of West Philadelphia. So think of our boundaries loosely as running from the Schuylkill River out to 50th Street. What investing in vitality means, it means different things to different audiences, and it's meant different things over the years. We think of it in terms of layers of infrastructure. So very briefly, we invest in the foundational infrastructure of clean and safe streets. We invest in the commercial infrastructure of supporting neighborhood businesses. We invest in the civic infrastructure of building great public spaces. And then we invest in opportunity infrastructure, connecting people in West Philly to jobs with our employer partners through the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. And that's work that Sarah Steltz leads for us.
That's great. Yeah. And Sarah, do you want to just give a brief overview of that specific program and initiative?
Sure. Simply put, the Skills Initiative focused on connecting talented Philadelphians to jobs at some of Philadelphia's most selective jobs, some of the greatest opportunities that are available. We take the time to develop a training program that runs usually around 4 weeks, taking unemployed Philadelphians and connecting them directly to those jobs with employers.
That's great. Very exciting and important work happening in our city. So how have you been affected by the COVID-19? We'd love to hear your story.
Sure. So, we, like everyone else, we're grappling with something new every day at a baseline level because of our clean and safe foundation. We have an essential workforce. So every day we're struggling with how do we put people first? How do we make sure people are safe and healthy above everything else? But how do we provide the essential services that we're chartered to do? So I think that's a thread that runs throughout our organization every day. But then we've had to make 2 big pivots, one around our support for small businesses and one around our support for job seekers. And I think, Sarah and I and many others on the team have really spent much of our time over the past couple of weeks focused on just that.
Yeah. And so, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say that we are an in-person, classroom-based job training program historically. So the impacts of this were immediate and serious in terms of what we typically offer. We've had to change, I think, literally overnight how we serve cohorts of folks.
Yeah, I think UCD, Sarah makes a great point about the whole organization. We are as high touch on the ground as you could possibly be. We run major public events. We have public spaces. We, bring thousands of people together out in public, and we bring dozens of people together in classrooms. And so we have to reinvent the organization every day because of that.
Yeah, and it seems like your organization is just such a strong community and a community base in the neighborhood that you serve. And so when you think about the social fabric of Philadelphia, that community and that in-person interaction is just threaded throughout. So it's interesting to see how these pivots are being done. When did you first start to realize or suspect that you're going to have to start adapting, given what was happening globally before it actually started to hit the US?
Yeah, I think, we had all talked about it for a while. I remember a very nerve-wracking leadership team meeting that we had where we said, this is real. What do we have to put in motion, and what do we have to do over the next, 2 days and 2 weeks? But I think for us, the real, around the country, universities were really ahead of this because they had to make very quick decisions about students who were on spring break, whether they were going to invite them back into their physical residences. And so when our universities began to announce or contemplate that they were sending students home for the rest of the year, that was the real kind of red light flashing for us. And that was weeks ahead of all the shutdown orders. But that was a real red light flashing that, number one, our small businesses are going to be in a great deal of trouble because they depend on the physical activity at the universities to survive. And number two, from a skills initiative standpoint, how's that going to impact our partners who are doing all the hiring and the folks we're working with to build pipelines. So I think that was the real indicator that we had to move very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you get that red light. How are you guys pivoting? How did once the alarm was sound, talk to me a little bit about how you went into action and what that action looks like now.
Yeah, and so maybe I could talk a little bit about small businesses, and then Sarah will
Yeah.
talk about the work she's doing on Skills Initiative. Small business is very clear that this was going to be, people have called it all kinds of things. It's an extinction level event for small businesses, and so we're seeing that in very real time. And our philosophy has been, nobody's got the answers, what this is going to look like a month from now or a year from now. But if we could do whatever we can, and sometimes it's going to be a small thing and sometimes it's going to be a big thing, if we could do whatever we can to get small operators, usually independently owned retailers and restaurants in University City, buy them another day or another week or another month when they can keep their doors open and keep surviving, then maybe we could get to the other side of this somewhat intact. So it started out with some very basic stuff. We began to match gift card sales for local restaurants, thinking that was a way, as many are doing now in Philadelphia and across the country, that was a way to get money in the door and to keep people going. Then we did what we know best. We run these big events. We run an event called Dining Days every summer that brings 20,000 diners to University City restaurants. So we launched the Digital Dining Days, which was primarily about promoting, who's still open for takeout, delivery, and gift cards. Then we started to climb the ladder a little bit. We raised some money to be able to support one of our partner organizations, the Ronald McDonald House, and feeding families in need. And we were able to sponsor local restaurants so that we could buy meals from them and they could deliver them to the families at Ronald McDonald House. Then the final piece of the puzzle for us is something that we're working on right now. University of Pennsylvania made a very generous donation, $250,000 to support a small business emergency fund for our independently owned retailers and restaurants. So we went from first phone call about 6.5 days later to launch of that program, and we'll make small grants of up to $5,000 to successful applicants. So again, there's no one solution that operates at the scale of the crisis. But if we can piece together these different things, if we can help folks access public funding, then we think we can get to the other side of this and help our small business community survive with us.
That's great. And as always, so impressive to put all that together in such a short period of time. That's great. So Sarah, can you kind of talk about your role in all of this and the skills initiative?
Sure. Well, almost immediately when it was clear that we were going to have to close down classes, we had a class in session. We had a cohort for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, one of our longtime employer partners, and they were in the third week of a 4-week program with interview prep and interviews and all kinds of important content scheduled for that following week. It was clear that we weren't going to be able to take those steps, so we transitioned over the weekend to move everything online. So we broke down and worked individually with participants to prepare them, set up online interviews with CHOP, and then at the end of that week, everyone in that cohort, so 14 people plus one alumni from our program, was offered a position. So that was a good day at the beginning of this, and it provided a little bit of insight into how we might be able to connect to people virtually going forward. So we had that data point, and then we've always been about serving people who are looking for work and employers simultaneously. And what we see right now is that we're doing that same thing, but with the alumni of our program as the priority. We sent out a survey shortly after this began to hear what the situation was with our alums, whether or not they'd retained employment, lost hours, and if so, and even if not, what kind of content would they be looking for from the Skills Initiative. When we got that feedback from them, just a week later, we were able to put together all of that online content and begin to offer it. So that is what we're in the process of doing right now. And we're also sourcing opportunities. There are employers who, as a result of this crisis, are needing to ramp up, employers that are offering remote work. And we are expert in building relationships with employers. So that is what we are continuing to do so that alums that have been laid off can connect to safe, high quality jobs. That is what the Skills Initiative is about during this time. And I think our next steps will involve the development of a virtual program that is in the spirit of our cohort-based models, but that we try to do that work remotely and keep it really relational, really personal, which is the hallmark of our work.
That's great. It sounds like such an opportunity to collaborate with the employers, with the two organizations together, with the Skills Initiative and UCD. Wow, that's incredible. Was it a challenge to get not just yourselves online over that weekend, but the participants as well? Do you feel like, I just feel like the digital divide is just so amplified in this time right now.
It is. Luckily we had a cohort in place and had a long-term relationship with those folks so we could get an understanding of what their situation was in terms of tech. And we also included that in our alumni survey. Yeah. And we find that many of the Skills Initiative alums do have online access, but they are accessing with their phones. Yeah. And it isn't ideal for a lot of content. So as we think about the virtual cohort model, that is something that we're going to have to reckon with, certainly, because the phone is much less interactive than a PC or even a tablet.
Yeah, but it's something to think about too. When people say we're going to go online, you just assume a computer. But if there is some functionality that can be done on a phone and that's more accessible, that's a great opportunity to kind of rethink the wheel a little bit there with tech access.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just the school district being able to distribute the Chromebooks also makes a tremendous difference for us, because households that had laptops or PCs, those were being given over to the students so that they could do their work throughout the day. So even homes that did have some connectivity, it was about student learning at that moment, which impacted some of the learning opportunities for our adult participants.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly important to think about when we make our shifts. And I feel like one thing I'll note too, as I've been doing these interviews, is these constituent and surveys have been so important. And so if anyone's watching this at home and, taking this into consideration as they make their own pivot, I think getting that feedback and the lay of the land and the temperature check is so important to do. So that's great to hear that you were able to conduct that again so quickly. So you guys you're shifting, you're pivoting. What does success look like for you? I mean, no one really knows what we're going to be walking out into on the other side, right? So how are you thinking about the opportunities and the short term, but the long term success too? Because it seems like whatever we walk out into, it's not going to be the same as it was. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I think short term success will be, can I cut my own hair? And the jury's out on that. There's a reason we're doing this now before I try that, because I will be doing audio calls only. Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Jen. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we're trying to, added to the layer of, as every organization is grappling with, adding to the programmatic layer of, are we serving our small business constituents well? Are we serving our skills initiative constituents well? How are we doing as an organization, and how are we getting through day? We have 125 people in a revenue constrained world, and so we've got to survive and thrive as well. And so short term, I think is really about a couple of things. It's about survival for everyone. For our businesses, for folks seeking jobs, for us as an organization. I think for us, we've decided that, we're going to use this period and say, in this crisis, even if we're doing different things than we've done before, we want to be indispensable, right? We want to be indispensable to job seekers. We want to be indispensable to those employers who are still hiring. We want to be indispensable to the small business community, which is trying to get by. And that's going to require like 10 new ideas every day. 4 of them might work, but we've just got to try everything and see what sticks. And so short term, we're really looking at things that way. I think long term, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the skills initiative. We have some really ambitious goals out of Sarah's leadership. Because of Sarah's leadership, we're well on the way to achieving those goals and expanding our program geographically. And we expect to get back there, right, on the path to those goals. But we're also cognizant of the fact that, if there is a 20% unemployment rate nationwide, which there might very well be in a few weeks' time, that in our highest poverty neighborhoods, it might be a 30 or a 35% unemployment rate, right? So what is the role of the skills initiative in that crisis? And we think there's a very substantial one. But I think that's a bit how we're looking at the long term.
Yeah, no, it's such important work, and I'm glad that you guys are out there doing it, or at home doing it, right? So, yeah. Well, no, this is great, and I'm so happy that you guys have a chance to, continue to tell the story across the city and across the region. How can people help? What can people do to help push these different initiatives along and support the people that you serve?
So I'll just give you one quick example, and I think there are several, but our website is universitycity.org. The Ronald McDonald House program in particular, where we're raising money to sponsor meals catered and delivered by local restaurants. So helping a great community institution, serving families in great need at a time of stress, at the same time helping our local restaurants. We've been fortunate to raise money to have folks from the community step up to support that. And there is a way to donate on our donate page of our website to be able to continue that program. Every $1,000 in donations buys meals for about 90 family members staying at the Ronald McDonald House. And of course, every $5 or $10 helps push us forward as well. So that's one very tangible way that we're asking for support and asking for help these days.
No, that's great. And a way to, like, as you said, to bring everyone together, right? So you've got the Ronald McDonald House, you've got your local businesses, you have the community, who I think there's so many people that are looking for ways to get involved, who aren't sure how. Yep. And that seems like a low barrier way to do that. So that's great. Yeah. And then Sarah, how about from your end?
I think thinking big, the Skills Initiative has always been about the power and the value of the frontline worker for every business. And that is the story that the Skills Initiative has been telling for 9+ years. And if there are a lot of heartening stories out there right now, but the thing that is getting attention that I find valuable and I hope memorable after we're through this is the investments that are being made in frontline workers, because we believe that there is significant business value there, and that is a group of folks in every workplace that are all too often overlooked. So I hope that employers will maintain the level of attention that they're paying right now to these people who are keeping their lights on, keeping product moving, serving customers, because that is those are the people that the customers remember and interact with, and they are well worth the investment. And we would encourage employers to think about their talent strategy right now. In addition to fair compensation and leave policies, the Skills Initiative would advocate for employers to consider the implications of layoffs. If it is possible to retain employment and think of other solutions, we would advocate for that, because tooling up when we come out of this will be much more difficult for employers that have released their employee population. So those are the big things that we would hope to advocate for and to influence. And practically, I think the Skills Initiative needs to be in a position to serve as many Philadelphians as possible, because we're going to be needed. This is a model that works, and we need to have the capacity to serve the folks that we know most certainly will be looking to connect to jobs, and employers are always looking to connect to high quality talent. So I would say capacity is going to be the most important thing for us to do what we do well when this comes to a close.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, as you said, you have the model, you know that it works. So like, let's get a jetpack and put it on across the city, you know, like that's, I mean, really, I mean, like, this is not it. Like, yes, our risk tolerance is going up and we're all trying new things, but at the same time, if you have something that's proven, like let's do it, right? So I'm there for it. And I think you gave such an important a point about essential workers, and it just makes me feel good to know as a Philadelphian that the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative and University City District will be there to hold people accountable, right? And to make sure that this is, you know, this is going to continue to evolve and hopefully end up in a better place than where we were. So I think that's great. So for our final thought, is there any advice you would share for those folks at home that are considering how they're going to be shifting their plans in light of all of this? What advice would you give?
There's no playbook, right? And I think I think that's the advice. I mean, I think we're, you know, we number one, we're trying to learn from others as much as possible. So, you know, there's so many great organizations in Philadelphia and so many great organizations around the country. Every time we've posted something, say on LinkedIn, where we say, hey, we're going to try this thing for our small business community. Is anyone else doing this? And you get 10 responses back and say, well, you know, in Milwaukee, we're doing this. Why don't you try this? And I think that's great. And I think so we're all trying to write this script together. We're trying to do the same on the workforce front. And so I think the advice is to just try something, to share. You know, we're an organization that iterates and makes mistakes and learns from those mistakes in normal times. And I think we have to do that times 10 in a time like we're in now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I agree. Yeah, I think, yeah, we're all in this. These are helping professions. The work we do is, that is the nature of it. And I think that, like Matt said, staying true to who you are as an organization, what you are expert in, what you know about. There's value in that, as there was before this crisis, as there is now. So it's important, I think, for us, although our temptation is to help, to send everything and say everything and share everything with our constituent population, you know, our participants, we should be directing to the resources of others who are expert in spaces while we maintain and share our own expertise. And I think that's the collaboration that Matt's talking about, and how we all benefit, and ultimately how our participants benefit as well.
That's great. Thank you both so much. And that just expresses the spirit of the pivot and this series too. And I just think you put it so well. It like, yes, you have to know what you do best and do it. And then this is a time to learn from others and see, you know, where those learning opportunities are too. So I think that's great. So I'm going to share you guys information. So Matt and Sarah, thank you so much for participating in today's call. You can find them online at universitycity.org and universitycity.org/WPSI. Thank you so much. Just a reminder, you are watching The Pivot, which is a web series from the Economy League, sharing stories from leaders across the region on how they're pivoting in wake of COVID-19. You can find us on our website at economyleague.org, on Twitter by the same name. And if you have a story of your own that you'd like to be featured on the show with, please email us at pivot@economyleague.org. Thank you guys so much, and we hope to see you on the other side of this.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Have a great day.